My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, we often think that being missed comes from how deeply we love someone, how often we show up, how much effort we give, but that's not where longing is born. Longing isn't created by constant availability, it's created in the quiet. It's when your presence is no longer there to comfort them, to validate them, to make them feel seen. But it's not just about going silent or walking away. It's how you leave that changes everything. When you step back with grace, with calm, with dignity, not anger, not begging, not bitterness, you create a space so rare that it echoes louder than words. You don't slam the door, you simply stop knocking. And that silence becomes unforgettable. People expect noise when someone leaves, but when you walk away with calm strength, it's disorienting. They expect drama, and instead they feel a void. That void becomes the birthplace of missing you. The truth is, absence alone doesn't always create longing, but absence with dignity, that's something they remember at 2 a.m., when their heart feels heavy and their mind starts to replay what they lost. When you walk away with your head high, no begging, no forcing closure, you protect your value, and what people can't access anymore becomes priceless to them. Your energy, your kindness, your time. They start realizing they were not just habits, they were privileges. When you no longer make them the center of your world, when you stop showing up to prove your worth, they start to feel the distance not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. That emotional gap is where longing is born. And you didn't have to fight for it. You didn't have to manipulate it. You just had to choose you. That's the power of dignified absence. It makes people reflect, and reflection breeds regret. You see, dignity leaves a trail that lingers. The way you carried yourself, the way you didn't chase, the way you held your silence with grace, it burns into their memory. They remember how you didn't make it messy, how you didn't lower yourself, how you kept your peace while they were still searching for their ego. And in that contrast, they begin to see who really lost something. That's when they miss you not just for what you did for them, but for who you were when you didn't try to convince them to stay. When you leave with self-respect, you remind them of what maturity looks like. You remind them of what love looks like when it's not desperate, not loud, not performative. You teach them by your actions that love doesn't beg to be seen. It simply walks away when it's no longer honored. And long after you're gone, that lesson remains. That's what creates the kind of missing that never really ends. We live in a world obsessed with attention. Likes, comments, texts, validation. Everyone's chasing a moment, a reply, a reaction, but attention is fleeting. It's loud and hollow. It can make you feel seen for a second and forgotten in the next. What truly lasts, what truly holds value, is self-respect. Because self-respect doesn't need an audience. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It's quiet, but its presence changes everything. When you choose self-respect over someone's attention, you're no longer at the mercy of their moods, their games, or their silence. You stop dancing for scraps of love and start sitting at tables where your worth is never up for debate. And the wild thing, the moment you stop chasing attention and start honoring yourself, people notice. The same ones who once overlooked you suddenly feel the shift, because your energy no longer asks, it chooses. There's a different kind of power in being the one who walks away not to teach a lesson, but because your peace costs more than their inconsistency. That's what self-respect does. It sets boundaries that say, I matter, even if you don't see it. And those boundaries are not walls, they're doors. Doors that only open for what aligns with your worth. The person who needs attention will always be in survival mode, needing others to define their value. But the person who stands in self-respect radiates something untouchable. You don't need to post more, call more, prove more. You just need to remember who you are when no one's clapping for you. You need to remember that you were enough before they saw you, and you'll still be enough long after they forget. Because self-respect doesn't need a response, it needs a decision. A decision to stop shrinking to fit someone else's view of you. And when you choose that, everything changes. You stop measuring your worth by who responds and start measuring it by how you respond to yourself. You start protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is, and in doing that, you become rare. Not because you tried to be, but because most people are still chasing noise while you've become a sanctuary. The person who once fed off your need for attention will start to notice the void when you no longer need them to validate your existence. That's when they miss you, not for what you gave them, but for the way you stopped giving. And the silence that follows isn't empty. It's full of your growth, your healing, your becoming. Self-respect doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It doesn't make you distant. It makes you deliberate. And in a world full of people trying to be noticed, the one who respects themselves becomes unforgettable without even trying. It's tempting, isn't it, to play the game, to act like you don't care, to post that perfect picture just to spark a reaction, to time your replies to show him what he's missing on purpose. But let's be honest for a second, that kind of glow up, it fades fast, because anything rooted in revenge, in performance, in pretending, will never last. The real glow up doesn't come from making someone jealous. It comes from making peace with yourself. It's not about showing him what he lost. It's about discovering what you almost forgot you had. And that kind of transformation can't be faked. It doesn't need filters or followers or a facade. It needs healing, and healing is not glamorous. It's messy, it's lonely, but it's powerful, because every time you choose to grow instead of get even, you elevate. You shift, you rise, and here's the truth. When you stop playing games and start doing the real inner work, something magical happens. You start shining differently, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally aligned with your truth. You begin to attract differently, not just in relationships, but in life. You stop needing to perform for love and start becoming love. The kind of love that doesn't chase. The kind of love that doesn't need attention to feel whole. Your glow becomes internal, rooted in purpose, passion, and peace. You set boundaries not to push people away, but to protect the version of you that's finally growing into her power. And suddenly, the same people who used to play games with you can't even reach you anymore. Not because you blocked them, but because you've outgrown the level they're still playing on. That's the glow up that leaves a mark. Not the one built on likes, stories, or trying to win a breakup, but the one built on rising quietly, steadily, and honestly. You don't have to announce it. Your energy will speak for itself. The light in your eyes, the calm in your voice, the joy that's no longer tied to anyone else's presence. That's real. And the man who once saw you as someone to play with, he'll feel that shift. He'll scroll through your name and feel a weight he can't quite explain. Because the version of you he once knew is gone. Not bitter, not broken, just evolved. You don't glow up to prove him wrong. You glow up because you finally decided to stop dimming your light for someone who couldn't handle your shine. Growth doesn't scream, it radiates, and that's the kind of power that can't be ignored.